Alright, today we will be checking out the Pixel 10 versus the iPhone 17 here. Should be a pretty interesting comparison here. And Pixel design is probably one of my favorite smartphone designs right now. I really love the camera island, as you guys can see. So there are a few differences with the overall hardware here. The weight of the Pixel is actually going to be noticeably a little bit heavier at 204 grams, with the iPhone 17 coming in at 177 grams. So it is going to, feel a little bit heavier. And overall, as far as the build quality goes, both phones very well made. Like I said, it comes down to your personal preference on, the design. You'd have a matte finish on the 17 versus the glossy finish on the Pixel 10. And the iPhone does have a few little buttons that you can interact with. The camera control button, you can take pictures and swipe with it. And also it doubles as a visual intelligence button. If you hold it and you could search for stuff. It's very similar to Google's, circle to search that they've had, for years. So how you would do that on here is you would just hold the taskbar and circle stuff. So, it's similar to that. And also you have a action button on the iPhone that works as a universal remote, or a universal application button. So I have it set to flashlight. You could pretty much set this to anything, any application. So, that might be something that's interesting to you. Both phones are IP68 and dust and water resistant. And yeah, that's pretty much it. That's pretty much it for the hardware. They're both, they're base model phones, so they're kind of compact, which is something that I really like. They're very easy to manage in one hand. All right, so let's go ahead and discuss the displays. The Pixel 10 has a 6.3-inch display. It is 120 Hz HDR10 Plus, and it does have a 3000 nits peak brightness. It is a 1080p panel, 422 for the PPI. We have the Gorilla Glass Victus 2, and as you guys can see, we have our punch hole versus the dynamic island. And one thing you'll notice that the bezels on the Pixel are a lot thicker. They come in at 86.1% screen to body ratio. So you guys can see compared to the iPhone 17's 91.1 screen to body ratio. So you have much thicker bezels. They are even around, around the phone. So that's nice. But yeah, you do have slimmer bezel on the iPhone. The iPhone also this year coming in with a 6.3-inch display. It is LTPO, XDR OLEDs, 120 Hz. It is also 3000 nits peak brightness. And you do have a slightly higher resolution at 1206 by 2622. This is 460 for the PPI. So you do have overall a higher resolution panel on the 17 and a higher PPI. How that translates to real life, I would say you pretty much can't really tell the difference in terms of screen quality, especially from this distance. Let's see if we look a little bit closer at icons. No, you really can't tell that much of a difference because the PPI is not that much different from the the iPhone 17. So I would say screen quality is essentially very good on both of these phones. The only thing that you could really say is that you have a more aesthetically pleasing design on the 17 with the slimmer bezels, but you might not like the dynamic island here. It kind of takes up space compared to the Pixel's punch hole. Also, a nice little feature they threw in here was the anti-reflection coating on the 17. So when the light hits it, it's not as harsh on the 17. And I think that's pretty much it for the panels here. About the specs here, the Pixel 10 has the Tensor G5 processor. We get Android 16 with 7 years of macOS updates. We have 128 gigs of internal storage and 12 gigs of RAM on this base model. The iPhone 17, it does have the Apple A19 chipset, iOS 26, 256 gigs on the base model now, and then we have 8 gigs of RAM. As you guys can see, the iPhone does do a much better job here in the single and multi-core score in Geekbench 6. And if we also hop into 3D Mark here, you can see we do get slightly better frame rates as well with 28.5 versus 20.26. So overall, the iPhone 17 is going to be the more powerful device. If you're not a gamer, I think both phones perform pretty well. They feel pretty much the same. I think the iPhone will definitely be a little bit quicker when you're getting into games and stuff like that. But besides that, I think general applications, like, they legit feel the same to me. Because the iPhone has 120 hertz this year, it feels like a proper flagship. So animations and everything look really smooth on both phones. Like I said, you guys can see, like, normal applications, multitasking, switching is gonna feel similar. If you're more into gaming, then you would probably, lean towards the iPhone a little bit. But it really depends on what type of user you are, because typically Pixel phones are more for, doing AI tasks. Google is not really concerned with, like, having the best benchmarks and stuff. But yeah, as you guys can see, both phones are pretty quick. So I think for general usage, it's not anything to really be concerned about. How most people are going to use their phones, just doing normal stuff. As far as the gaming performance goes, I haven't run into any problems with heating or anything like that. So I said both phones actually do a very good job when it comes to performance. PUBG, we can play at 60 frames very smoothly. The Pixel did have 120 frames, but then it went away on PUBG. So I'm curious to see if they actually update these base model phones. The iPhone does not have 120 frames for PUBG yet, but if we're just talking about general gaming performance, they both feel extremely similar, playing PUBG at 60 frames. So I would say your gaming performance technically is going to be a little bit better on the iPhone 17, but for what most people are doing on their phones, it's going to feel extremely similar, because if you're just coming in here playing, imagine PUBG, Call of Duty, Genshin, both of these phones can, play all of those games perfectly fine. So I feel like speed, animations, is very smooth on both this year because of the 120 hertz. So everything you do on your phone just feels buttery smooth. Now, where these phones actually differ, in my opinion, is I think the AI is a lot more superior than what Apple is doing with Apple Intelligence. They have some kind of cool things on here, like the Gmoji and stuff like that, the Playground app. But I would say, as far as an AI assistant and just I think the AI features in general, they just work better on the Pixel. For example, if I ask the Apple AI,
the answer I found is AI.
Wait, hold on. How much does the iPhone 17 Pro Max cost, the 1TB version? Yeah, see, it doesn't give me a straightforward answer. I run into this problem actually a lot when I'm trying to get an answer. How much does the iPhone 17 Pro Max cost, 1TB version? Yeah, so the Pixel, the assistant is a lot smarter. Let's check out these speakers. We're at max volume. We'll start with the iPhone. So both speakers are pretty loud and they sound pretty good, but there's a different type of balancing on here. So the Pixel is putting a lot of emphasis on the kicks we hear, but it's not really putting a lot of emphasis on the 808s, where the iPhone is putting a lot of emphasis on the actual 808s, giving you like that big boom sound, but it doesn't put a lot of emphasis on the kicks. I think this comes down to kind of personal preference, but I think the overall, it really depends, because it sounds like the Pixel, if I put this song on my speakers, I think the iPhone has it to where it's, how it's supposed to sound. Now you can kind of tweak and play around with the settings to get it to sound, how it would sound on a bigger speaker. But they both kind of sound the same in terms of loudness. It's just the way that the speakers are balanced. The iPhone has a dual camera setup, 48 megapixel standard, 48 megapixel ultra wide. Because we don't have a telephoto lens, we can only go up to 10 times zoom, and that zoom is going to be, pretty much digital, right? We have a 4K 60 video, and then we also have an 18 megapixel selfie camera that shoots in 4K 60. Also, Apple has added this feature where the selfie camera can take landscape photos and videos while in portrait mode, which is pretty neat. Alright guys, so the battery life. The battery life has been extremely good on both of these phones. I've been pretty impressed with the screen on time on both of these base model phones here. They do a very good job. The Pixel coming in with a huge battery. It's a 4,970 milliamp hour battery. We also do have 30-watt charging, wireless charging, and this does have Qi 2. So the accessories that you would get for an iPhone can work on the Pixel, which is pretty cool. As far as like the MagSafe goes. And then we also do have reverse wired charging and bypass charging. And the iPhone has a 3,692 milliamp hour battery. We also have 25-watt wireless charging, and then it also has Qi 2, and then reverse wired charging is here as well. My screen on time has been great on both of these phones. I consider these, all-day phones, which means you could pretty much get 6 hours of screen on time. And again, your screen on time will vary based on what you do. If you're a heavier gamer, video editing, maybe running GPS all day, it, will look different. But I think for the most part, how most people use their phones, you can easily get 6 hours of screen on time with these phones. So be sure to let me know what you guys think. Which phone would you guys go with? And I'll catch you guys in the next one.